production and growth. On that short video, as we saw, what are the ingredients that make economic grow? Okay, labor. Okay, you want to make something, we need labor power, manpower. The more educated the labor, the better. And together we call it human capital. Then we need capital, equipment, building. Okay, we need material. Okay, then also technology. Technology make us make things better, faster, and more. As we advance in technology, just like cell phone, back when they started, it wasn't that quality. It was kind of big, large, not that many functions that cell phone could do. But look at it nowadays, you know, that the smartphone is sophisticated, you can do a lot with it, smaller, easier to carry, and also cheaper too. And then technology is another factor. Yeah, let's just glance through all this. I might just use very simple math to describe this production function. Okay. All right, then what we're going to do in this chapter, we're going to answer to these questions here. What are the facts about living standard and growth rate around the world? Why does productivity matter? And we already know about productivity. Remember, what was the definition of productivity? Amount of output, then per unit of labor produced. Okay. If a pizza man produce 5 pizza an hour in New York, and the pizza guy in Bangladesh only make 1 pizza an hour, then we're going to say, sorry about that. Then we're going to say the pizza man in New York is 5 times more productive than the pizza guy in Bangladesh, because he can produce 5 times more. Quantity produced per unit of labor. That's called productive. That's how we measure it. Okay, and that's a key ingredient to make the GDP more or less in community. Okay, the key ingredients of living standard. All right. What determines productivity? But why the guy in New York is 5 times more productive and the pizza guy in Bangladesh? Okay, what determines that? Well, okay, just a common sense. He has access to more equipment. Maybe he's using the electric oven, sophisticated oven. He got access to electricity, nice tools. The guy in Bangladesh maybe has a clay oven and not sophisticated tools and all that. The level of technology also is different and all that. That's what makes the guy in New York more productive than the pizza guy in Bangladesh. Okay, then we're going to figure out how can public policy affect the growth. Okay, what government can do here, what policy we can do, bring in to improve the standard of living and make economic growth faster. These are the ones that we're going to tackle. I'm going to just glance through some of these. Well, this is a UK typical family, a snapshot of the typical family in UK. Well, then you see their possession here. They have nice homes, big houses, and per capita income is $39,040. Okay. Child mortality rate is very, very low. 0.4% of them die before of age of 5. Child mortality. 100% educated from high school. Okay, just like USA. You know, these are the criteria we can make. Okay, this typical family have access to all of this material stuff. Of course, it doesn't show the happiness. It doesn't show the equality in the system. None of those is in here. It just shows the material. Okay, let's look at another country. Say here, this is Mexico. As this is typical family, what they have access to: the adventure. The cars is not here. The building is not as fancy. And per capita income is almost half of that, 16,000. Child mortality is higher, 1.3% of children die before reaching the age of 5. And educational level is about 30% high school population graduated from high school. And a poor country like Mali here, per capita income is 1,500. Okay, what is that? Almost $3 a day. How can we live with $2 a day? Okay, including everything. Okay, you guys go to school, probably it costs about $10 at least per hour on you. You don't spend it, but look, when you sit in the school, you have a nice building, you have teacher, you have internet, you have security, all those, you add them up and divided by one high school student, probably come up about $10, $15 an hour. Okay, but look at these people here. They live with $3 a day for the whole thing: food, education, transportation, and all that. Okay. Then child mortality is a lot higher, 11.5%, and 5%, 7% of them educated reaching high school. Okay, water quality, sanitation, facility, 25%. Okay, now these are kind of give you a snapshot what we're about here. Why is that so? What is all these differences? Then economists are going to look at the production function. They look at the productivity. Why the person here cannot make as much as the guy in New York, pizza, as we just use that example. He doesn't have access to a lot of capital, education. Those are main ingredients in making economic growth. All right, now this table here kind of give you the rank of countries in respect to GDP per person, okay, gross domestic product per person. As you see, this period from 1900 to recent time, 2014, like example, Brazil. Now you got access to 15,590 per person. That's the GDP per capita. Okay. It started with 828. Now it's 15,590. Which means they grow about 2.61% per year on average. Okay, it doesn't go up straight. Okay, we go through the bump. Okay, sometimes like this, sometimes recession they go down, sometimes they go up a little bit, this and that. It just depends. But when they were here, okay, their GDP per capita was 828. Now there is 15,500. On average, they grow 2.61%. Now you come at the bottom. See, US is here, but we started higher than Brazil. Then we are higher than Brazil right now. Okay, but our growth rate is smaller. Okay, like UK, growth rate is smaller. Okay, also we are better off in comparing the GDP per capita. Okay. What is that so? Okay. Why is they faster, but we cannot grow as fast? Okay, we call that catch-up effect. Catch-up. Let's say. All right, let's just go here. Because of differences in growth rate, we rank the country by income changes substantially over time. Poor countries are not necessarily doomed to poverty forever. They can grow. Okay, like Singapore incomes were low in 1960, and now it's quite high. Okay, let's see if we had the Singapore. I don't see Singapore here. Okay. All right. Let's stay here. Yeah, but rich country can't take their status for granted. They may be overtaken by poorer and faster growing countries. Okay, uh, that's just the reality, right? Uh, then the question is, why are some countries richer than the others? Why do some countries grow quickly, faster than the others, and some kind of stuck in the poverty? And what policy may help raise these growth rates and a long run living standards? Okay. What can we do to raise it up? And what are the ingredients? We define the productivity, kind of established that before. Quantity goods and services produced per unit of the labor. Then, if we use Y as a real GDP, okay, and we divide it by quantity of labor in our economy, then we say the productivity of all labor is Y divided by L. Okay, ours is pretty high. Okay, let's say 9. Okay. Versus Bangladesh maybe 1. Okay. Then we say all labor is 9 times better, faster, more productive than the guy in Bangladesh. This is just some notion here. Productivity is output per worker. You can have that on very small businesses. Like let's say Pizza Hut have 10 workers working there in daily, and daily they make, let's say, 400 pizza. Okay. You divide that, then you say productivity level for Pizza Hut is 4. Okay, is 4. Now we're going to see why is that so. Why some industry does better than the other one, why some country does better than the other one, and so on. And why is it important? Is the key determinant of living standard. Of course, if we can make things per labor, we can make more per labor, then we'd be better off. Okay, we have more access to cars, food, housing, and so on, because we are more productive. Now, when the nation's workers are very productive, then the real GDP is larger, okay, and income is higher. Okay? We know GDP, we can calculate it from 2 ways: income level and expenditure. But if they are more productive, then they have access to income. Then growth in productivity is the key determinant of the growth of living standard. When productivity grows rapidly, so do the standard of living. Okay? All right. And that identity, that economy income is equal to economy's output or expenditure. Okay. Different way to look at it. Now, what are the determinants of productivity? First of all, is capital. You saw it on that short video. Physical capital. Okay. If the pizza man, I usually use that, have access to a better oven, nice oven, tools, cutting, and tools that you take the pizza out, put it in, versus the labor that does not have that fancy oven, If he has a clay oven, uh, he has a cutter that is dull, it cannot cut, it cannot be fast, then evidently that guy has a better, more capital, then he can produce more. Okay? Then that's one of the ingredients, the capital, that makes productivity more than someone else. Then if we put that physical capital divided per person, okay, this is a labor. Okay? This is a labor. And productivity would be higher if the average worker has more capital, more machine, more equipment, and increase in K divided by L, capital per labor, causes an increase in output per labor, which is productivity, right? Productivity. Okay. Well, let's just again use our example for Pizza Hut. Okay, let's say you have 4 guys working in pizza place. Okay, now they have access to 1 oven. 4 of them working here. Okay, they have to wait. This guy just does things, put the in the oven, and this has to wait. And the productivity, the amount that's going to be produced at the end of the day, is going to be less if they have 2. Okay, let's say we have another oven here. Now, they can produce more. Let's say put 3 oven here. Okay, that's even better. Now we get to this certain point. We're going to talk about it as we come. Diminishing return to capital. If we put, if this is ideal. 3 is good for maybe 5 workers. Okay. Now if you keep adding more and more and more and more, right? Put 8 oven in there, they're going to go in each other way. The actual is going to diminish. There's a certain threshold. We got to figure out what is the perfect amount of K or capital, for example, here oven to our facilities. Okay, we're going to talk about that. But for right now, the physical capital is one of the ingredients that makes productivity grow. Human capital. Remember, education is very important. If you get the labor and educate them, they can produce more. Okay? Knowledge, skill, these are acquired through education, training, and experience. That's the second ingredient. Then, if you divide that human capital per worker, again, we get H divided by L. Okay? The higher educated laborers, the higher the productivity. These are pretty much common sense. Okay? Productivity is higher when the average worker has more human capital. What do we mean by human capital? Education, skills, experience, etc. An increase in HL then causes increase in productivity. Well, let's see what else. How about natural resources? Okay, some countries happen to have access to more natural resources. Good for them, be more productive. Japanese have access to more fishery and ocean. They can catch fish and shrimp and tuna and so on. They become good at that. Saudi Arabia happened to sit on a lot of oils under the ground. And good for them. They'd be good at that one, right? The natural resources is also important. That's the input that goes into production that nature provides. It's land, rivers, minerals, so on. Natural resources per worker, divide everything by labor again, then other things equal, more natural resources allow the country to produce more Y, and again, is higher than NY, higher than productivity of the labor. Okay. The last, not least, is technological knowledge. Technology. Okay. This is kind of combination of all the knowledge that society built up. okay, through experiment, through research and development, and find a way to make things faster and better than some other country. Okay? That also makes uh, labor be more productive. Society's technology is society's understanding of the best way to produce goods and services. Okay? Technological process progress means a faster computer, higher definition TV, smaller cell phone. See, these are all technologies that help us to improve the quality of these items. Any advance in knowledge that boosts the productivity, okay? Any advancement in technology that boosts the productivity of the labor allows society to get more output from its resources. Like Henry Ford assembly line is another example. Okay, imagine in the car industry, then you got 500 employees working in the factory and making cars. Okay, before creating assembly line, which actually Adam Smith did with the pin factory. Okay, those pins that we make for sewing and all that. That was back in the days, 300-400 years ago. Hot item in our society to build. Imagine, well, he went to a factory and he saw one worker just make one pin. Okay, he sharpened the edge of it, he make a hole at the end of it, he cut it, and he make it by himself. Okay, this guy next to him do the same thing. Okay, this guy next to him do the same thing. Then he comes and says, okay, I want to create the assembly line. This guy here sitting here, okay, just cut the metal. Okay, hand it to this guy, and this guy make a hole. Hand it to this guy sharpening the pointed, okay, and this guy polish it and put it aside. And it was proven that at the end of the day, the old ways maybe make 100 an hour, those little pin, and it was 5 times more with the same amount of everything. All it did, it just created assembly line, okay? And Henry Ford kind of followed that too in making cars, okay? And instead of one worker make the whole car by himself, as you see in a lot of these movies, probably you can have access to those, you see it on YouTube. Check all those assembly line on YouTube. In any industry, they use it. One guy just make, door. One guy make glass. One guy put the tires on. One guy put the engine on, And this is assembly line. At the end of the line, the car comes out. And if you do that, you'll be 3-4 times faster than one person do the whole car by itself. All right. Technological knowledge versus human capital. Technological knowledge refers to society's understanding of how to produce goods and services. Human capital results from effort people expend to acquire this knowledge. Okay, this is different. This is education. Okay, individual or laborers spend time in high school, in colleges, university, to have access to this technological knowledge. Okay, that's kind of give you a little hint. What is the difference here? And they both are important in productivity. All right. Then, what was the ingredients of productivity here? K, physical capital, right? Human capital, education and all that. Natural resources, right? And technology. Okay. Kind of give brief explanation of these ingredients that make a person more productive, make the laborer more productive. Okay, let's ask the expert this question. Future innovation worldwide will not be transformational enough to promote sustained per capita economic growth rate in United States and Western Hemisphere over the next century, as high as those over the past 150 years. Okay. It's kind of normative statement, right? As we see, we study the history of the last 150 years, and we saw how fast we grew. After the two World War, how we came fast and grew. Okay, those tables we just saw indicate that. And is that going to be the same for future? Let's debate it. 34% disagree. 49% uncertain, and 7% agree. Okay, that's pretty, disappointing, right? Majority disagree with that. Well, oh no, that's good. Will not be transformational enough. Will not. This is a negative. Then that's the good news. Then, yeah, we're optimistic. It will, because of the advancement in technology. The way we advance in technology, and yeah, it's a lot of 4 times, 5 times. I agree with this. That technology will advance and will help us. This majority are uncertain. Oh, now let's use just a simple equation here. There's nothing to it, not big algebra and all that. Let's say this is the production, the GDP, total production of the society, depends on all those factors we just talked about, right? Labor, capital, human capital, and natural resources. Okay, and we put this A here. This is for technology. This is for technology. Okay? If technology advances, and this goes up. Okay, this goes up. Okay? Proportionally. But if this labor goes up, Y goes up, but not at the same rate that the labor goes up. Amount of labor, okay, or amount of capital. That's the function of these things. Okay. Again, I don't expect to go a lot of details on math part of it, but we just verbally explain all this. Okay, we just verbally explain all this. You can just stick with that. That's fine. Okay, or if you want to just use a little bit mathematical limitation, we can use it for. Not everybody is the same. Some of you might, better in math. Some of you better in verbal. There's both ways to explain it. Or graphically, we can explain things too. A graph equation showing the relation between output and input. F is a function, right? Shows how inputs are combined to produce output, right? A is the level of technology. Okay. A multiplies the function. So improvement in technology, which is increase in A, allow more output to be produced from any given combination. Okay, let's say I want to put here, let me just raise it here. I want to put here production here, okay, which is Y, okay, and put, let's say, labor here, okay, labor here, and keep the K constant. Okay. Keep the H constant. Okay. The same way they were doing education-wise, capital-wise. Natural resources, of course, stay the same. Okay. Now, if the labor keep going up, well, we're going to have more output. Okay. Which means there is a positive relations here. Okay. Positive relationship. Now, if labor stay the same also, all this stay the same, now we find a way to improve the production of goods, which is our technology goes higher. Okay, technology go higher. Then, with the same amount of everything, we're going to have more. We're going to have more output. Okay, we're going to have more output. We're going shifting the curve. Okay, we're going to shift it up, just like that. Shift up, shift up. Okay, at the same level of everything. If we were here, now we're going to have more because of technology. For those of you who want to just see the importance of this, A, the outside of the function, that's the reason for it. It proportionally goes up with 1. Again, not too big deal. I just want to mention for those of you that want to just use mathematical notation. Okay, the production function has property constant returns to scale. Changing all inputs by the same percentage causes output to change by that percentage. Doubling all the inputs multiplied by 2, okay, causes output double. Again, this is just the mathematical computation. If you had original one, okay, original one here, now everything double, okay, assume everything double. The level of technology stays the same. Then you're going to have double output, right? That's what it just says. Yeah. Level of technology stays the same. Increase all input by 10%, multiply each by 1.1, causes output also increase by 10%. Okay? That's just simple math. But don't worry about it now. Production function, if we multiply each input by 1L, now we're going to divide everything by L. Okay, we're going to divide everything by L. Okay, then how do we show that? It's going to be like this. Remember, this become, what do we call this? Productivity. Output per labor. Output per labor. Okay, which is a function of technology, constant. This become 1, and these are capital per person. Education or human capital per person. Natural resources per person. Okay. This equation shows the productivity. That's why we just want to show it in a different way. Okay. Output per worker depends on what? On technology, on capital per labor, education per labor, natural resources per labor. Okay. Let's just do this here. Let's just discuss these questions here. Which of the following policy do you think would be best effective at boosting growth rate and living standard in poor country over the long run? Let's say you graduated, you got your PhD in economics, you got hired working in, let's say, Pakistan. Okay, then ask you a question. Okay, we want to raise up our standard of living. Okay, what we got to do? Okay, first, okay, offer tax incentives for investment for local firms. Offer 2, tax incentive investment for foreign firms. 3, that's all the way to G. Give cash payment for good school attendance. Crack down on government corruption. Restrict imports to protect domestic industries. Allow free trade. Give away condoms. Okay. All right. Which of these following policies do you think would be most effective to boosting the economic growth and living standard? Okay, think about it a little bit. Okay, maybe we put it on poll here. Read those. We kind of discuss it so far. think about it. There's no right, wrong answer here, but I just want you all, think about it a little bit. Look at those lines and compare it with what we just did. Those four main ingredients. Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty interesting. Let's say look at the A. I mean, you can just, which policy you can pick, as an economic advisor to your president, whoever you're working with. And some might say, well, offer tax incentive for investment by local firms. Okay. What that means here, it makes investment goes up. Okay. That's also a good choice. Investment goes up. Capital. Investment is making capital goods, which is dealing with K. Someone what says, okay, give some incentives to the foreigners to come build factory in our country. We might not have so much capital here, and that also could be a help too, right? Or we might say, give cash payment for good school attendance. Okay, kids don't go to school; they don't want to educate it. Give him a boost. Okay, give him a prize, give him a cash, then they come because we need education down the line for later on to improve the skill, the knowledge of the workers. Okay, crackdown on government corruption. Okay, crackdown on government. That's not going to be as effective. Okay, but somehow you can link it to one of those component of the economic growth. Restrict imports to protect domestic industry. Okay? I guess this is a negative effect because we believe free trade help and boost the economy globally and on most countries. Okay, that's also debated. Restrict imports to protect domestic industry. That's debated. Well, we agree on that one. Allow free trade, promote those society's economy. And this is a funny one, the last one. Give away condoms. Okay, what is that to do with this one here? Okay, actually, if you look at from the economic point of view, we're dealing with population growth. Okay, this is going to be last part of the chapter. Is population growth is good or bad for the economy? There's kind of two ways to look at it. It's good because you have more population, like US. This is relying on a lot of immigrants. They're all coming here, right? Educated people. They're already, taxpayer of the other countries paid for them to be doctor, engineer, like Indians, Chinese, or Cubans, and they just leave the country and come here. We welcome them because it's good for here, right? They can produce more, okay? And the underside, they say, well, there's too more people to feed, okay? Too much mouths to feed, and that's kind of debatable. But we're talking about the population growth is good or bad. Condos probably, uh, decrease or try to put a break in population growth. like Chinese do it. Now they punish you, they tax you if you have more than one kid, right? Of course, they repeat that act now. It's not like that anymore. But that's something to do with population growth. Okay. All right. This was the discussion here. It was nothing to put it on polling here. But let's say economic growth and public policy. Okay. That's what we just talked about a little bit, right? Let's just glance through this here. The way public policies can affect long-run growth, productivity, and living standards. Okay. What are the ways? Okay. It's going to answer some of those questions. Saving and investment. The country that save more, then later on that saving can go towards investment. If we can kind of channel it towards investment. Okay? Let's say you make $1,000. Okay, that's American. They go spend it all. Not that they go even borrow another $200. They spend. They're spending more than what they're making, right? Because we got these credit cards, we got these banks, they loan you this and that, right? And is this good for society or bad? Okay, that's saving and investment. Let's say we make on average $1,000. Let's say Chinese spend $600. Okay? They save $400. Okay? They don't spend it all. Okay, they save 400. Ours is negative 200 saving because we borrow. Our government does the same thing. They just save $400. Where does this $400 going? Okay, they go put in the bank or buy stocks, or somehow we're going to channel it to towards investment. Okay, somebody that needed money to open up a restaurant, to open up a factory, they have access to this saving. Later on, we're going to talk about this identity. Total saving of society will go to total investment of the society. Okay, remember our identity, the Y, the GDP, income equal to expenditure, right? We're going to talk about that later, right? G and an X, right? Okay. Now, the more saving, the more investment. Okay, and this investment is for future production. Okay? For we make the equipment that bring up the future consumption, and that's what make the economy grow. Okay. All right. Now, we're going to talk about that. Diminishing returns and catch-up effect. We already kind of touched on that. Remember catch-up effect? That countries are poor. That's what that video shows. You started poor after World War II. Germany, Japan are all destroyed. Okay, they have to start from zero, right? But U.S. was here. Okay, it didn't really got damaged by war as much as those two countries did. Now this is here. This guy is here. We call it catch-up effect. Well, of course he's going to grow faster, and this guy cannot grow as fast. Okay, we call it catch-up effect. We cannot reach it yet, but they get to the certain point, they cannot catch up either. Okay, they go slow rate. That's why the poor country, if you give him those ingredients, capital, technology, human capital, and resources, they can grow faster. They can jump up. I usually use this. Let's say assume two runners. One is the world champ. He run the 100-meter 10 seconds. Okay, we've been doing it last 2-3 years, right? He's a champ. Nobody can catch up with him, right? Then one guy started, and they time him, and he goes 100 meters for 20 seconds. Half slower than the other guy, right? Then, but they put him on training. He trained. Maybe in a few months he jumped, 5 seconds. then he can jump, he can go 15 CS, still behind the other guy, but he catch up. His rate of growth was fast. Maybe another 6 months, he get to 11. But when he get to that, he cannot go any faster. So does the champ. Champ hardly can break even 1/100th of the second. Okay. This kind of apply here in economic growth the same way. You start poor, you can jump faster. That's why Chinese got, so much higher growth rate than US, right? Okay. Then investment abroad is good, education is good. Investment abroad is okay. Well, we have so much money here now, there's no place to invest. We can just go overseas, like a Starbucks or McDonald's. They're all over the world. It's saturated here, right? It's saturated. Well, how many more McDonald's do you want? Every corner is McDonald's. Then they can go abroad to invest, help those other countries grow. Health and nutrition, property rights, political stability is very important. Okay, if the government corruption, well, corruption was in previous one too, right? If there is corruption in the government, people lose their confidence, their trust. They don't want to invest their money in that country. They take it out of the country, and it slowed down the growth rate. Okay, slow down. Free trade is good. Research development is good. Population growth, again, we look at it as two ways out. These are the topics that we're going to briefly talk about in following the slides. Okay, we already touched on that. Raising future productivity, we need investment. Where does that investment comes? From the saving. Okay, invest more current resources in production of capital. Trade-off would be, since resources are scale, producing more capital requires producing fewer consumption goods. Okay, it's a trade-off. Trade-off between consumption good on capital goods. When you put your resources to make more consumption goods, something that perish after you consume it is gone, like a bubble gum, or devote those resources to making tractors, oven, factories that goes to investment or production of the future products. Reducing consumption equal to increasing saving. This extra saving fund, the production of the investment goods, more details coming in the following chapter. We might get to it in the next chapter, right? Okay. Policies that raise saving and investment. Fewer resources are used to make consumption goods, more resources to make capital goods. K increases. When the K increases, remember, it raises the productivity of labor and then living standard. The faster growth rate, and this faster growth rate is temporary. Okay. Now, due to this term here, it's familiar with diminishing return to capital. Okay. As capital increases, well, productivity increases. But in a certain point, it does not work anymore. Okay. Remember, I used the example of pizza. If you put 10 ovens in one small facility with 5 laborers, keep adding oven, then it doesn't bring any more up. Okay. Actually, they might just go on each other's way and won't produce as much as they did when they have 3 ovens. Yeah. Let's just look at it graphically here. Well, let's say when you hear you give the labor, this is capital per labor. Okay, you give him a little bit more capital, okay, 1 more unit capital, Well, they can produce more. Okay? If you give him another labor, another capital, another capital, they can produce more, but not as much. But not as much. It diminishes. That's why it's called diminishing return. That's what we call it, diminishing return to capital. Okay. Like we go here, we give him another one way out here. Okay, you get another oven in that small facility, then they can make extra one, but not as much. When you go to the point, you get extra oven and all that, it doesn't bring any more. It's just sitting there. Okay, that's called diminishing return. The production function diminishing return. If workers have little capital, okay, let's say there's just one oven in there. Okay, you give him another oven, they bring more. Okay, not as much. Giving them more capital increases their productivity a lot. If workers already have a lot of capital, giving them increases productivity fairly little. We keep going. Okay. All right. Let's go to the. We already talked about diminishing return. Rich countries start here. Okay, they are saturated. They already have a lot of capital. They bring more capital. It's not going to go higher anymore as much. Versus poor countries here, you give them extra capital, they're going to jump. Okay? They're going to jump faster. Okay? They grow straight. Just study these two slide here. Let's say we already talked about catch-up effect, right? Okay, 1960 to 1990, U.S. and South Korea devoted a similar share of GDP to investment. It expects smaller growth performance, but growth was more than 6% in Korea versus 2% in US. Again, this is a catch-up effect. Korea was here, US was here. You give him more, they jump higher. Give him here, they jump a little bit. Okay? This is a catch-up effect. Okay? The catch-up effect in 1960, capital per labor was far smaller in Korea than US. And when you give them the capital, they jump. Okay, like that runners I use example. You give him more training, he's going to jump fast. He's going to improve 5 seconds. Versus the guy is already a champ. You give him more training, he barely can improve 1/10 of the second. Okay, that's the catch-up effect. Also, yeah, just glance through all these. Then, if the too much capital in U.S. and doesn't have the growth rate as much, they might as well just go invest it abroad. Okay, invest in Korea, in China, overseas, like McDonald's do, Starbucks. They're going all over. There is another way to a country to invest in capital. Okay, either you can directly go out there invest, or indirectly. We call it portfolio investment. Okay, directly. The capital investment that is owned and operated by foreign entity, like McDonald's, directly go there and do it. Or you can just finance it and give it to them, and you say, okay, you're all doing it yourself. This is the capital. This is what you need, and give me a cut. Give me a percentage back. Yeah, either way, there's two ways to do it. All right. And they both benefit. Okay? You invest abroad, they both benefit. Okay? The country that have access to more capital, no use for it, and you get a percentage back. And the country that needed capital to develop, to grow, and you got access to that also. Education, we just talked about it, very important, right? Very important. We know that because we know we know. Okay, guys, hold on just a second, okay? Just a second. Let me get this here. Okay, guys, let's see. That was Dr. M.A. has a question. Now, education, okay, we know that. We know the guy who has PhD make more money than the guy has a high school diploma or even doesn't have high school. The wage is so different, right? That's why we know the education makes labor more productive. They can make more money, okay, if you look at it that way. The gap between the wages kind of shows that, right? But education, what is the opportunity cost? Remember, uh, is this, you go to college, let's say you graduate from high school, you go to TCC for 2 years, you spend money, you spend 2 years, you could work 2 years and not to go to school and make, let's say, $30,000, but on a skill job, Walmart, fast food places and all that. But you sacrifice those time, those money for future. Maybe you get your associate being a, help in nursing and something, or mechanical or some company. They hire you, they pay you now twice more what you make. Okay, that's the opportunity cost. You give up something, you gain something else in the future, right? Okay, let's say now a problem with the poor countries here, we call it brain drain. What does brain drain means? Well, U.S. was Europe, U.S. Uh, uh, very good up to now. Most educated uh, laborers from other countries, they all want to move here and enjoy the freedom, and the standard of living is higher and so on. And but how did those guys got educated in their country? They get their PhD, they get their degree, being engineer. The country paid for them, right? Their mother country paid for them. The taxpayer paid for them, because most of those schools public and they free is not free, it's very cheap, but subsidized by government, right? Then when they finish and now they very productive to do something, they leave, they come here, and U.S. has access to a free, educated person. Okay, right? Then we call that brain drain. Okay, that's something that underdeveloped country, poor country, gotta be careful on that. Okay, uh, then at least when they graduate, they should make them work out there, at least pay off for whatever society contribute to their education. Okay, that's the brain drain. Health and nutrition is very important. Okay, healthcare expenditure is a type of investment in human capital. Healthier workers are more productive. Of course, you don't want workers go to work and just get sick and call sick and they have to leave. And, you know, uh, it just dragged down the production, right? Versus the workers that are healthy and they can produce more, right? Uh, but unfortunately, the poor country, they don't have a very good nutrition, very good health system, and most workers are sick and they cannot go work. They go work, they have to go back home, and they sick because they poor, and they poor because they're not healthy. This is a vicious cycle. Okay, vicious cycle. How we can make him healthier? But they can afford it to be healthier. Okay, that's another big topic nowadays here for us, USA, right? Uh, why not have free healthcare for everybody? Make the society healthy, and they can be more productive. Okay, we can look at it at that angle. Uh, like this statistic here shows that in countries with significant malnourishment, that nourishment, raising workers' caloric intake raises productivity. Between 1962 and 1995, caloric consumption rose 44% in South Korea. So we try to make the population more. They know they want to make it more healthy. Economic growth was spectacular. It relates the population health to growth of economy, right? Um, Robert Fogel, 30% of the Great Britain growth from 1790 to 1980 was due to the improvement in nutrition. Okay, there are statistics, there are a lot of research done in this field that you have access to it if you Google it, it's all over, right? Again, we talk about that vicious circle, right? The poor country are poor because they're not healthy, and they're not healthy, they don't have money for nourishment and all that, and they're poor. Okay? Somehow you got to be breakdown. Um, property right, political stability is important. Okay? If you live in a country that you're not sure if somebody come and stole all your property, all your belonging overnight, and you can't take it to court, corruption and all that, and nobody want to go and invest in those societies. Okay, that's why political stability is important. Nobody knows what's going to happen, in near future in Afghanistan, in Syria. It's all politically turmoil, right? Nobody then wants to invest. Okay, and yeah, just look at all this. Uh, through this slide, pretty straightforward. Again, free trade is good. Okay, trade can make everyone better off. That was one of those principles, right? Outward-oriented policy means the government should have policies that open up the economy to the outward. Inward means they close the border or close the trade with the foreigners. Okay, then we know that free trade is good. But nowadays, there's a lot of stuff going on uh, for a lot of different reasons, politics and so on. But economically speaking, free trade is good for the economy, both sides. We already talked about those, right? Research development is important. Okay, uh, that's why some of these companies, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they have some people out there just paying them, put them in the lab, and they say, okay, just you know, find another way to improve our product. Okay, do research. Okay, then a lot of money keep going. They might not find anything, but when they do, the company benefit, the society benefit, everybody's benefit from it. Okay, policy to promote technological progress. Okay, we've got NASA, we've got patent law, we get tax incentive, direct support for private sectors to do research and development. And it's very important in pharmaceutical. You know, right now they spend a lot of money researching to find um, a, vaccine for this coronavirus, right? Competition between them. They doing it. They're spending thousands, million of dollars in working on it. But whoever find it, then it protected by law. We call it patent law. Nobody can copy it for certain years, and that's why kind of uh, boosting those researchers to go find a way to cure some disease uh, or improve the health of some part of community, you know, like AIDS or hepatitis. And if they come up with these pills, then they be patented, they be theirs for so long. Nobody else can, uh, you know, copy it, and they can make a lot of money. All right, population growth. We already touched on that one. You can look at it both ways. In a positive way or negative way. Positive way is more people there, more labor, uh, can work more. Negative way, they might say, okay, too much to feed, you know. Uh, okay, population growth may affect living standard in three different ways. Okay, uh, stretching the natural resources, more mouths to feed. 200 years ago, this is another economist, Robert Malthus, argued that population growth will strain the society's ability to provide for itself, and unfortunately, mankind doomed forever to live in poverty. That's about 200 years ago. We didn't know about the technology we have right now. The farmers only have shovel and hammer and things like that. But look at the farmers these days, right? All the giant tractors, irrigations, and all that, right? Irrigations facility, uh, and we're proving wrong there. We're proving wrong, okay? Because he said population grows exponentially versus the food are diminishing. Actually, our resources on Earth is diminishing. But we find a way to disprove that argument, okay? Because our food now is growing so much, so fast, and we got to throw some of them away, you know. But of course, not all part of the Earth is the same. Some famines still exist in some part of the world, but that's the different reason for that. Okay. What else? Population grows, diluting the capital stocks. Okay. Workers won't have access to capital because if they're getting more and more and more. Uh, and again, this is the negative side of the population growth. And some developing countries like China use policy to control population growth. Okay? China one child law, increase awareness of birth control here in the West, equal opportunity for women, promote female literacy to raise opportunity cost of uh, having babies. Uh, but on the other hand, the third one was promoting technological progress, world population growth, engine for technological progress and economic prosperity, more people, more scientists, more investors, more inventors, and more engineers. And this is a positive way of looking at population growth. Uh, okay, it's another economist here, Michael Criminal. He's a historian. humans. Growth rate increased as the world population increased and more populated regions grew faster than less populated. Yes. Uh, okay, let's just do some of this here together and open up some of the questions. List the determinants of productivity. Let's just put it here. Okay, sorry. Are y'all hear me now? You good? Okay, thank you, thank you. All right. Now, list 3 policies that attempt to raise living standard by increasing one of the determinants of their productivity. Okay. You just put it on polling here. You need 3 policies, okay, to raise the living standard by increasing one of those determinants of the productivity. Okay. Let's see here. If I put true false, I would say I would say free trade. True or false? Good. We know free trade increase the GDP and standard living. Okay, most everybody's agree on that one. That's good. Let me put one more. Again, true, false. Okay, I'll put here R&D. That stands for research and development. If you have a policy that increase the standard of living, true or false? Research and development. Okay, that was another one. Okay, a lot of companies do that. Government also help private to tax break and all that to companies that do research and improve the technology to make things faster, better. All right, that's good. Most everybody agree on that one. Now, determine the answers is here. Physical capital is good. Human capital, education, natural resources, technological advances, policy to boost them, encourage saving and investment, encourage investment from abroad, provide public education, patent law is important, control population growth to increase K and L, which is kind of debatable here. And we already talked about this part here. Are natural resources a limit to the growth? Some argue that population growth is depleting the Earth's non-renewable resources, and therefore will limit growth in living standard. But technological progress often yields ways to avoid this limit. We're already doing it, right? Like hybrid cars, not to use gasoline anymore. Recycling, better way to insulating the home, reducing the energy and so on. Okay, just glance through all of this. We're almost there. Conclusion and in the long run, living standards are determined by productivity. Policies, government policies that affect the determinant of productivity will therefore affect the next generation living standard, right? One of these determinants are saving and investment that we'll talk about it in the next chapter. All right, let's just stop this here. All this recorded, you have access to it after the class. Give it a few minutes, we will upload it.